And then here, again, that's the way it should have begun, but it's hopeless. These tears that are dripping, even on the table, it looks slick, as if there's just this, he's parroting, he's poking fun of what people think women are, but he doesn't believe that. He knows that we're a lot stronger than we're given credit for. So the joke is not on us. The joke is really on our society. And then on the right, although he holds his Russian palette in his hands, I know his heart is always with me. Sort of imaginary thinking, sort of a desperation there. And he's really asking us, who really has the power? I mean, I would say, this is coming from a 41-year-old woman, I would say that young women have a lot of power in our society. Young, beautiful women have more power than I think they even know. And so I think he recognized that, and he's asking us to ask ourselves, who really has the power? This is a really famous painting. In fact, it was just recently sold by a woman named, she's still alive, she's in her 90s. Her name is Agnes Gund. She lives in New York City, and she had this hanging over her mantle for many, many, many years. And she's like a socialite, I guess, and it sold at Christie's for $165 million, record-breaking for Roy Lichtenstein. And she sold it to a Wall Street hedge fund broker. And the money, this is an interesting side note, is that the money that she raised was for, it's for people that were criminal or institutionalized, penalized for criminal acts that they didn't commit. So it's basically to match up, my understanding is it's to match up the DNA that is sitting sometimes in police, labs. It's to help to match the DNA with the suspect or the criminal to free them. So that's what the money is going for, which I think is pretty cool. And oftentimes African Americans are targeted for crime. The reason I say that is because Agnes Gund, her grandchildren are black, through, I guess, marriage. And so she has sort of a soft spot for that. So that's it's just a little side note. Now this is a really famous Roy Lichtenstein painting because this woman is drowning. And she is drowning either in her own tears or in a wave, but she doesn't care. She would rather sink and die than call Brad for help. So she's prideful, and she's losing her life, and she might be drowning in her own tears. Some people have said that the ocean is, if you know that painting Hakusai has like a gigantic ocean wave. A lot of his paintings were Mount Fuji, Japanese artist. But some people had said that kind of looks like he might have even started to appropriate art from that style. This woman is caught in a moment of inner turmoil and grief, but she'd rather die. That's how strong that he feels that women can be, is that she doesn't want to turn to him for help. This is two other paintings. On the left, I find it interesting that the man is not looking at the viewer, looking away, and is very stone-faced. There's like very lifeless in the eyes. But then on the left, you have this woman that's all dolled up for the night, but she's not really a woman, is she? She's kind of like either a reflection or just like a rectangle. And the eye has a lot more life to it, as if to say that women are a lot more complicated than we might give them credit for. But she's also escorting him. So she's sort of the eye candy, but yet at the same time, she's not as fully formed. He's not as fully formed as maybe she is, or maybe neither one of them are. And then I chose this painting on the right because it's a woman, a young woman that's saying maybe he became ill and couldn't leave the studio. So she's like dating an artist, and she's making excuses for him. And maybe he stood her up. But either way, she's making excuses. And so it's kind of like, again, it's all in her mind, because you can see it's not a speech bubble. It's the little circles where it's saying that in her mind, women have this amazing ability to find grace, where maybe grace shouldn't be given. And that's what I find so interesting about these two particular paintings. Nurse, there's, some limitations to what women could be in the 1960s. I would say that there was some expectation that you would be in the service like a teacher or a secretary or a nurse in this case. She just looks so young and innocent. And even though she's an educated woman and she is a nurse, she still looks like emotional, like shocked, as if something just happened a second ago that's taking her breath away. And on the right again, you have a woman. These Band-Aid dots are it's called optical mixing or an optical illusion, where it looks like skin even though it's red, but when you look far back, it looks like skin. So it's like this blob of skin, maybe it's a question mark, but there's this woman again in anguish, this woman again that's crying. Lichtenstein's women were often described as heroines who exist almost as the antithesis of the male heroes in the comic books, from which he drew so much of his inspiration. The crying girls are what he wanted women to be. He wanted to make you cry. He wanted to make you think, and he did. He made you cry. That was from his second wife, Dorothy. And if it is true, these paintings of crying women are self-aware. This is a self-aware, like a depiction of early gender politics that he himself was unable to detach from. And I think it was really from those years of working with young people in that college setting. On the left is one of his early ones, so I'm sorry it's a little bit out of sequence. This was an ad that from the Poconos, which is in the mountains of Pennsylvania, and that was one of his first paintings. He took this young girl, again, the power that this young girl has, I'm not sure if anyone's even willing to admit how powerful she is. She's young, she's beautiful, she's filled with life, and the world is open to her. And on the top, White Bread Darling's painting is a masterpiece. My soon you'll have all of New York clamoring for your work. So it's something that maybe one of his girlfriends would have said to him. Forget it, forget me, I'm fed up with your kind. Sort of a rude statement that a man would say when he's going out the door. And then this woman, I know how you must feel, Brad. She's thinking that. So a woman in a recreational setting on the left, in a setting where she is giving a boost to her husband or her boyfriend, and then a situation where she's getting dumped, and then it's maybe not all the same woman, but another scene where she is being empathetic to someone. So he really understands the spectrum of women's emotions, and I think he really wants to almost parody that, but in a way that women don't want to be that. He's telling us that there is so much more to us. And these are nudes that he did later on, and I thought it was interesting because he's kind of asking us, do you want to be beautiful, or do you want to be smart, or can you be both? Like specifically the woman reading on the right. Like, is it possible for a woman to be completely beautiful and smart and have things to offer? Is it possible for two women to be together on the left and it not be a pornographic scene? It's a scene of compassion, perhaps. One of them is clearly in anguish. Her head is down on the bed or couch, and her friend is helping her. And so he's asking us to kind of reimagine what we might feel. And he goes back to classical nudes that have been in art since antiquity. Nothing more beautiful than the human form. And for those of you that were with me since the beginning, we talked a little bit about genre being low form of art. This is really genre because it's people doing everyday things. So we were slapping the art world again and again by saying this is beautiful. Comic books are cheap. They're cheaply printed and they're for children, and yet they're rich. And yet we can learn something from them. And so he's taking the lowest of the low, and he's making them high, which again goes back to my point of feminism. You know, women were not seen as equal parts. And some people might say it's still not, because our equal pay hasn't been reached yet. The Equal Pay Act has never been, you know, ratified, so we still only make 73% of what a man makes. So he's basically asking us to take something that might be considered low and make it high. Same thing that Andy Warhol did. Can you see the beauty in a Brillo pad advertisement? Can you see the beauty in a Campbell soup can? And these are just drawings, but I thought it was interesting. Like a woman, you could tell by fingernails, on the left, making some sort of a lunch, some sort of a bread in a bag, anticipation of what's in it. And then the zipper, anticipation of what's under it. He really understands women to be very, very powerful in our society and views them as equals. Towards the end of the 60s, well, I should tell you, this is a direct quote from Roy Lichtenstein. It says, "Things that I have parodied, I actually admire." But towards the end of his, of this particular era, he changed styles and he did other images of power. Does anyone know what room this is? Yeah, the Oval Office in the White House. There's always that presidential flag there with the gold eagle on the left and the gold drapes. And so he's really giving us that same primary colors, but he's giving his own style, stylized, and he's giving us images of power as almost like a parody. And then you have images of American life, the banality of American diner food, the scene of American suburbia perhaps on the upper right, and then the bottom, the new thing that just came on the market was, you know, washing machines. So women would be in